Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. It's Kim here. And today I am working on dissecting this top. Now I showed you this top in my Thrifty Canucks video, and I will put the link to it below. Because I don't know, I'm pre-recording this, so I don't know when you're actually going to see this. If I have a chance, I will go back to that video and cut out the part where I showed you this dress in the hole and what I was going to use it for, or explained how I was going to use it. But if not, I will send you, the link will be in the description below here, and you can go back and have a look. So I did show you in that video how you can dye the pieces, and it turned out really, really cute compared to the orange color that it was, or that you can see it is here. It's a really cute piece, and I just used a little bit of green alcohol ink over top of it to get this goldy color, which I will use. And you can change the color to other colors as well. So it's not just this orange or this gold color that I'm going to make. I'm going to make burgundy or hot pink or whatever it is that I have alcohol inks and I want to change up the color. I can change it up. I can also use these by adding sequins and beads and really glitter them up or bling them up if I want as I go along. And I will show you those things when I'm doing it. But today I just, I was waiting for the camera to upload, and I figured, I've got a few minutes. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to take this top apart. Now I paid $4 for this thing. So I have no problem cutting it up and knowing what I'm going to get out of it. I'm just taking this little rough edge here off, and then I will move this out of the way and show you how I'm taking it apart. So this top had 8 seams in it. So each piece comes off in a little panel. And this is one of the panels here. Now I'm just going to show you how they're joined together. They have a seam, and the two pieces were joined together. There was like 2 seams in the front, the side seams, and 2 seams in the back, plus the seams from the sleeves. So each of these seams I normally take apart with a stitch ripper. And it also had beading along the bottom, along this border or this trim bottom, and around the neckline. But as I've been taking it apart, the beads have been falling off. But I have caught them here in a little tray. So I will put them all in a little baggie and use them, for something eventually. It's all little seed beads and some sequins. I don't know that I'll necessarily use it with this, but I will use it for something because they are very close in color to the project or to the appliques. So you don't see them as easily. But I am catching them as I go along. So I still have this one little section here at the top that I know is going to come apart as soon as I start taking the seam out. But I took the one panel off here. This one is done. Now the border is right on here. So I'm going to keep this piece, except I did make a big hole in it here. I'm going to take this piece because that's where I cut those appliques off. But I'm going to keep this in a whole piece, just taking off those little side seams. Now when I open this up, I open it up right along the edges, and I'm going to explain that in a minute because I keep all of these half pieces. So I'm going to put them aside. There is one whole one here. I will keep that separate. But any of these that are part pieces, I keep them and I put them aside in my pile of salvage edges. So I'm going to stick that aside for now. I wanted to talk about the sleeves. I'm going to move this over. So these were the 2 sleeves. If you go and you look, they kind of flapped over the side of the top. And they have beadwork on them and all of this roughly trim. Now, if I opened all of this up, if I completely took it apart, I'd be left with 2 little chiffon ruffles. Whether they'd still be ruffled, I don't know. Oh yeah, it's the whole thing is a straight piece. So I would have a chiffon flat piece that would be quite long because it's gathered. And then I would have this lace trim that's sitting over top of it that I could again get the appliques. But I liked this piece just the way it was. And it's whole. The only rough edges are where it was joined originally to the sleeve, and I can either glue that under or stitch that under so it's not noticeable. So this would make a really pretty element on a journal cover or on any kind of a project for that matter, just the way it is. So I'm not going to take these apart any further. This is going to sit in my box of appliques exactly the way they are, and I have 2 of them, so that's kind of fun too, that I can use it for a front and a back of a project, or 2 separate projects, and I can further enhance them with other things depending on what the project is. So those will sit the way they are as pieces in my elements. Then I have the pieces of satin. And normally, because these garments are serged, which means they have the machine serging to hold the pieces together. I'm just trying to find one where it's still got the serging. So here is where they've serged it along the edges of the fabric so it doesn't fray, and then they stitch it together, which I've taken it apart. But this serging also serves to hold this netting, this mesh fabric, to the lining. And normally I would just cut along the edge here with my scissors, and I don't throw it away. I would keep it so it would have this maybe about a 1/2 inch look where it would have a little bit of the satin on the one side and the mesh on the other. And I use these in my collages. I use these in my snippet rolls, all kinds of things. So that's normally what I would do. But because I really want to focus on keeping as much of these appliques as possible, I don't want to cut into it any further because then I lose more of it. And I don't want to cut into this beautiful border trim because I lose more of it. So I will painstakingly take these linings off of this netting very carefully, using a blade or using a stitch ripper. In this case, a blade works fine. If you don't have one of these tools, I use a flat blade, like a razor blade as well, but you have to use what you're comfortable with, and of course with caution. And it's kind of rough to take these apart. I just use my fingers to hold it apart. If it were a really long piece, I might, pin this to something, like use a clothespin and pin it to something, and then pull it taut so that I can take it apart. But it works just fine doing it with my fingers. And so I'm just ripping open the seam so that I'm separating the lining from this beautiful trim fabric. And it's not going to be perfect because this has been sewn twice. I mean, it's serged once to hold it onto the other fabric, and then it's sewn to make the seam of the garment. So usually, like I said, I usually cut away from it instead because it's faster and cleaner. But because I want to salvage all of these appliques, I'm taking it apart this way. I've learned, I used to take all garments apart this old way because I enjoyed the, knowing that I've used the whole thing. See, this is fraying as I go along. I don't even have to take it apart. They didn't do a great job here. Okay, so I've opened up that one seam, but now I have another seam here. I'll tell you, for a tiny little garment like this, I can't believe how much stitching went into making it. And I'm just carefully holding it. Yeah, I don't even really care about the satin. It's just the overlay fabric that I really want to keep intact as much as possible. Now this is painful to watch, I'm sure, and I won't make you sit there through the whole garment. I'm just going to take apart this one piece just so you can see how I do it. And it goes pretty fast. It's not, well, it goes pretty fast sometimes. Now, sometimes when you're dealing with garments like this that where people have been very resourceful, we're such a throwaway society here in North America. It bothers me so much, although that's how I'm able to get some of these kinds of garments. But you know, in other countries, they will resize the garment to fit another child. So the garments get repurposed and recycled and upsized or downsized to fit. So you can sometimes find multiple stitchings. And so sometimes you can't even take it apart because it's been sewn and cut down so many times for the next child, that you have to just cut it and call the rest waste. But I do on occasion sit there and painstakingly take it apart. But there are times where I look at it and go, I just can't. And those pieces, I will cut them off and still use them for snippets. And these are things you will see one of these days. I will do some snippet rolls with you. See, now this is fraying just as I'm cutting it because it was sewn so close to the edge. I'm just going to snip this away. There we go. And the one thing about this garment is not very big. So you do see some results pretty fast when you're taking it apart. Okay, so I think I should be able to now separate. Yes, it's completely separated now. So these satin pieces, I will still keep them for linings. I do have to check them to make sure that the holes don't have big tears in them that it's going to interfere. But if nothing else, this will become part of a snippet roll. So there are two seams here that I'm just going to quickly open up because I like it to be all done. I don't like to just put it away. Now this is just slip stitch, so it's pretty easy to take it apart. But I don't like to put these garments away half taken apart. I like to fully open them up and decide what it is I want to do with these pieces. Now when I open it up, I see there's another seam here. So this is now a piece. It's not a whole. You can see the seam there. So what they've done is they've used this to hem, but they've just added this little piece on to finish it. So I'm going to take that apart as well, because I take everything apart. So I'm just going, I'm not going to make you watch me do the whole garment, but I'm just going to do this one piece just so you see how I do things. And I like to do this stuff if I'm watching YouTube videos or, TV in the evening with my husband, and I will bring a garment up and sit and take it apart, because I can stop whenever I want and look at the TV, and same with when I'm watching YouTube videos. It's a great way to watch a video and not feel like I'm not doing something because I don't like to not be doing something, and I get very fidgety. I can't just watch TV just like that. So I always have to be doing something, even if it's mindless stuff like this, where I don't have to think much about it, or collaging, or fussy cutting. But fussy cutting is a little hard to do at nighttime when it's, the light isn't perfect. So I've taken that one seam off. Now this is opened up, and I will set it aside for my clusters and snippets. And it looks ugly as old get out. Yeah, you'll probably say, why are you keeping this? But it will go in my snippet bag for doing clusters and snippets, so I will save it. Going back to this piece before I can file it away, I still see I have a hem here, so I've got my stitch ripper. Now with the stitch ripper, it has a little ball on the end and a long pointy part, but it's this part here that does the cutting and cuts the threads on your stitches. The little ball goes inside so that you don't cut your fabric. And then this is kind of like a guide to slide your fabric along. Now, sometimes they don't start perfectly, of course, just because I'm on camera, right? That's how it works. But once you get it started, now I usually press and I can feel the little ball inside. It's something you learn how to do as you're going along, as you start perfecting. But this is not the greatest fabric to be taking apart like this. But the little ball is what protects your fabric from being cut on the inside. Because if I stuck it this way, I could very easily poke holes into my fabric with the pointed edge there. But it's more of a guide to guide along the edge of your fabric and see where you're ripping your stitches. So now I can open this up. There are no seams left. It does have a very rough looking edge, but it may iron out very nicely, so I don't worry about that until I'm ironing it. And when I iron it, I will trim off all of this excess fray that's here, probably trim it up or fray it up nicely enough that it doesn't look bad. But this is now ready to go. What will I use it for? It's probably a good portion of it will be used for snippet rolls, but right now it is a piece of lining fabric that is in pretty good shape. I mean, I just have to see how it irons out and make sure there's no tears in it, so it can be used as a lining fabric. So I will put it aside with my fabrics that I consider are good. So here's that piece where I have now taken all of the seams out, except there's one more seam right here that has to come out. I don't know if I can do it with a stitch ripper or not, but we'll try. Oh. In little bits I can do it. Okay. Okay, that's gone. So there, that is opened up now. So along the top, I still have this hem. This is where the neckline was, where these beads are. And on the inside of that is a little piece of that satin to use as a finish on these on the top neckline. So I'm just going to take that off, and that is going to cause these beads to come off. So I just happen to have another piece of satin here to catch them, which is what I did last time. And find the opening. Here we go. I can get this started from here. And using the blade, I'm just going to open this up. And the beads and the sequins are falling onto this. Because the first piece I took apart, I didn't realize that they were coming off. And I had beads go flying, and I had to catch them all. But now I've got this little Okay, so I'm at the end. That should come off pretty easy. Or not, because you're watching. Now this is how I take garments apart all the time. Well, unless I get frustrated with the seam. So this, when I open it up, is a lot of scrappy bits, and a lot of you would throw this away, but this is going into my snippet pile. I guarantee you I'm going to iron this out and use it. Same with this piece. I don't understand always their methods of how they cut these pieces and how they're sewn in, but I will iron all of this flat and it'll get used for a snippet. So I'm just going to put that aside for now. So this is a full, whoa, a few beads went flying. Grab the beads here. And I don't know if you can see that tray I have here. Here it is. So I've just put most of them in there. I might have a few stragglers on the table. So first piece of lining that I've opened up. Here's another piece of lining, and I'm just going to check it. There's no seams along the top, along the sides here. They're all opened up except for the hem on the bottom. So I'm going to do the same thing. Catch my stitch ripper here. And depending on the fabric, this can go very, very fast. But, you know, this is a delicate fabric, and it's not very firm. So I have to do it in smaller little bits. And I know you think that this is overkill. It is. But it's how I do things, and I think you guys know me by now, that I don't throw just anything away. And in my next video that follows this one, I will show you the snippets that I make. Now this has got some little holes in here. I don't know if you can see it. But if I was going to use this piece, I may come back and trim this off to go in my snippet. In fact, I think I'm going to. So I will just cut it now. I don't normally like to cut them, but this is really distressed, and it's not, you know, it's not like it's a main fabric that I would use. It's kind of a secondary fabric, but I'm going to cut along those holes so that there is less tear damage there. And this will go in my snippet pile. But the rest of this is a clean piece of fabric. You know, there may still be some trimming that I do afterwards, depending on what I'm going to use it for. And sometimes you need a tiny little bit into the seam, so I don't like to cut away until I know for sure, but that was pretty rough shape. So another piece of lining to add to my lining pile. So here's that full piece of fabric. And it's got the this edge on here from the serger. And I will cut away as much as I can. And this piece, because it's a whole piece and it's in really good shape, I'm not going to cut these appliques out. I'm going to keep this as a whole piece to use on a journal as a book cover, or I might use it as a fabric flip inside of a journal, or to further enhance. So this is not going to come apart. So that will just stay with my linings. And I will go through all of these pieces exactly the same way. Now this one I had taken, on my last video, I had taken off some of this. But again, it's still a pretty nice piece. I don't want to take away from the fact that I could use it for something where I need a larger piece instead of the appliques. So I'm going to put it in that pile as well. So another section here to take apart, and I will probably split it exactly the same way with lining, and I'm going to call it a fabric piece. Same with this one, and same with this one. So then we get into where I've taken out some pieces. Now this is a full one. And this is a piece of the border that came off separately. So I'm going to go back to that first one that I had cut out a hole in it. Is it this one? Yes. Okay, so this is the one I'm going to cut up. The rest of these, because they're whole pieces, I'm not going to cut them up just yet. I'm going to keep them as they are. These are all my little scrappy bits. It came with a zipper that is completely salvageable, so I will put that in my zippers. It does have a lot of threads that I got to pick off, but I will do that off camera. And these two pieces I will take apart off camera as well and finish that off. But now I'm going to show you how I use the rest of this stuff. So because I'm keeping the other pieces like this whole until I decide what I want to do with them, this will go into my appliques. So will this one go into my appliques, and this one. But I will cut away the excess. But I will leave a little bit of trim around it. And then these were the pieces. Okay, here's the rest of my, I don't know how much you can actually see here. I'm just going to move this over. So these were the pieces that I've cut off of the edges of the linings. Some little scrappy bits of netting from cutting out that applique. And then I got 5 buttons as well, but I'm going to put that with the appliques and the trim because they all match together. And these are the pieces that I cut off the edge of the, where they were on the seam, and they're not a full applique. So this, now I will trim it out so it's reasonably nice looking. And there is a little bit of serger thread on here that I will try to pick off if I can. If not, I will just take my scissors and just trim off that serger bit. Okay, that's garbage. But this, because it's not a full applique, and there's a couple of little threads there, it will stay with my snippet pile. Same with this next little one. And I know you think I'm crazy, but these are going to be so beautiful when I'm finished with them. You won't even know that they were the leftover bits. So I'm going through that. Now I don't want that salvage on there, so I'm going to cut that off. There's a little bit of a hole there, so I'm keeping the netting and cutting off this part. Cutting off the white edge. I hope you can see that. So I'm just cutting off that because it's not going to come off with my pulling on it. So that will be garbage. And I still have to go back and iron these, but I won't do it on camera. But all of this will go into a bag for snippets. Now this piece here is the one that I cut out the original flowers from in the beginning. So there are 3 really nice ones right there. And so I will keep these. And I should trim some of this away. I don't need quite that much netting. Keep that one. And this netting is pretty small, so I'm not going to keep that. And then going to the next section here, I've got 3 of the large appliques, but you can see this one has that white edge on there, and I don't think I can salvage that to make a whole one, so I will cut this out. and I will trim away that white serger because it's really stitched in there pretty deep. And this goes in my scrap bits, but these two will go with my appliques. So 2 large appliques, and I've got all those little small ones. Now I have another round here of the small ones. And here's another one. And now this is a little part one again. So I will, actually, I'm just going to leave it like that because there's nothing wrong with that netting on there. So it will stay like that. There is a little bit of that serger thread, but these I can pull out quite easily. And I will keep this piece. Next row has the larger ones. And the border trim along the bottom. So that's a really nice piece of border trim that I will keep with this one. This one is a little bit different here. There's a couple of threads on here. So I have 2 pieces of border trim. On either side of these 5, I have this one that is only a part one. So that will stay with my snippets. And then I don't even actually have to cut these apart. I have 4 whole large ones that I can set aside until I'm ready to use them. So I will leave them like this. I don't have to cut every single one. But I got 4, 5, 6 large pieces. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 small ones. I have the 2 pieces of border, 5 buttons, and I have these scrappy bits. Not to mention I also have the original one that I had changed color into the green. Isn't that pretty? That is so pretty. So just like that, I have this little pile of appliques that I can use for collage. And I have these scrappy bits, and I'm not even finished yet taking this apart. These scrappy bits will go into a baggie, and I will use it to make a snippet roll, but I will wait to see how the rest of this gets used. So what will happen is this will go into a freezer bag with all the rest of this that is salvaged to use. And this will go with it as 2 appliques because I've got 2 large appliques. So this will go all together so that when I want to work on a journal, I can grab this and I've got all my parts. In that same freezer bag will be another little baggie that will have all of these bits in it. Like none of this gets thrown out because I will use this for clusters, for snippet rolls, for spot elements, for little tabs, whatever it is I decide. All of this will get ironed out before it gets put away. And so I will use all of this. So this will be in a little baggie, and then all of this will be in the same little or in another little baggie together as elements that I can use with the journal. So that is how I would take this garment apart. And when I'm ready to work with it in this color, I can either take pieces out if I want to use a couple of pieces. But let's suppose that I take this out and I use it for making a page flip on a page. So I maybe use this much. I will trim off anything that's the offcuts and put it back into this bag. I will maybe cut all of these out, or at least cut them in strips or pieces, and any of the ones that are not perfect will get set aside into this pile. And you know, if I use it as a whole thing to make a journal, well, eventually this will become a snippet roll, and I will bring you along for that process. But I will keep adding and subtracting and moving things around in the baggie. But it's all together so that I know it's ready to go, and however I want to use it, I can look at it and go, oh yeah, I can make a journal cover out of that. Or, oh yeah, I love that color. I'm going to apply some of that into a journal I'm making that's not just orange. Or maybe I'm going to switch the color because I want to do something in greens or in burgundies. So I will take out a piece of this and change it to burgundy. But any leftover bits will go back in this bag because the main focus is not burgundy. The main focus is on this orange and it all being together. I hope that makes sense. But this is how I dissect a garment and how I, put it all together. So there is some filing system to it, and it is organized, and it takes up less room than it did as a full garment. And as I work with something like this, I may not work with this actual one for a while because I have other projects on the go. But as I come to a point where I'm going to do a snippet roll and I'm going to use this, I will bring you along for the whole segment of how I take this and turn it into something totally amazing and fun. And I will show you how I do it, and so that you can apply this as well to your own items. But I may not do this one. You may see from another garment. It depends on what I'm working with. But this is how I keep things together and confined and contained, and it's all ready to go. So I don't have to start from scratch with taking a garment apart and trying to figure out what part I'm going to salvage and what I'm not, because that takes, time to do, as you can see in this video, and I'm certainly not done. And I already started taking it apart before you got here. So yeah, it reduces my space used for storing a garment, and it puts it into a filing system of, that I know this is what's all together and how it's taken apart. That's it. That's all for today. Stay tuned for a day where I do some snippet rolls, because that will come up eventually, but I don't know when. But I hope you got something out of it. I wish you all a very creative day and a creative week, and stay tuned for more. There's always going to be more. Bye for now.